Dave Whichard. Welcome to Warriors Podcast. I've got a special guest today, my man, Gabe Ericson. And I'm blessed to know this guy. I will never forget, I met him. We were actually on a really cool plane one day, and I got a chance to meet him and just found out, just good people. I mean, you see Ephesians 3:20 there. I think that's the thing for me, Gabe. I just want to start out saying this is that, we're not going to hide God. I mean, that's why we're here and what we do, and we talk about whatever we want on here. It's our podcast, right? It's our business, our platform. Mm-hmm. But I know you feel the same way. You're here for that reason. And but Gabe is a Hall of Fame producer, probably multiple time, right? This year, possibly, right there. And then also has a Hall of Fame agency. They're growing as fast as anybody. And I was listening to him on the call the other day, and I was like, man, I gotta just talk to this guy, And not that I know you are, we know you are. I know Joe. I've had on. I got a chance to be on y'all's call one time. It's just always a blessing to serve and whatever. So I appreciate you jumping on, man. But hey, Gabe, just tell a little bit, just for people that need to get to know you, a little bit about your story, how you came to FFL, just anything you want to share about the opportunity and where you came from, that kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you. First off, thanks so much for having me on, Dave. I really appreciate it. And 100%, as far as, I feel like anytime you have a platform in life, I feel personally like it was given by God. Bible talks about being set on top of a hill. And I feel like if we're not, letting people know what Christ has done in our lives, I feel like I would stand before God and be ashamed that I had that platform and not done something with it. So 100%, and just so thankful for everything He's done in my life, and thankful for FFL, for the opportunity we have here, what we do what I get to do for a living. It's so cool. So a little bit of my background. So I got into direct sales. It was actually my first job when I came to college. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. Came to Northwest Indiana to go to a ministry college, trained to be a minister. And one of my buddies was actually Joe Basso, was selling newspapers door to door. And he said, hey, it's pretty easy. It's a good part-time gig, for a college student. And, a lot of my buddies were working in, overnight third shift jobs or entry-level positions in fast food. Where I was like, this sounds a little bit better. So I got into that, and kind of really set me on a path as far as direct sales, and just how that schedule, I went to a college where it's very, my degree, my master's is actually in practical theology. So the entire time I was in school, I was running a youth program in Southside Chicago, and it was a very, full-time student, full-time work, full-time ministry. And so that kind of work was perfect because I could go work 4, 5, 6 hours, a day and make a full-time income. I remember going to my first appointment with FFL and the person was like, you're the insurance guy, right? And, my last company did this bait and switch thing, which I hated. That's why, I was there, I was supposed to be there for something else. And then I threw in insurance at the last minute. And so I never liked that. And so I was like, yeah, I'm the insurance guy. It was awesome. And that first, my second week here, I got to help 7 families. And it was like, man, I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. So yeah, that's a little bit of my start with FFL.
And if I remember correctly, April 2020, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Yeah. And that's crazy. Yeah, it's so excited to see what you and Joe and the whole team has done. And it's just exciting. And to see you guys growing. And I know, seeing you on stage, I remember just those guys they're number one, I knew how the people that were up there and what was behind that. But a lot of people didn't know at that time. They did know you, like I knew about you.
Sure.
And I'm learning more today. But so were you raised in the church, or your family, or was that just something that happened to you as a young man, or how did that work?
Yeah, no, it happened as a young man. So I grew up in the inner city of Columbus, in a pretty rough area, just me and my mom. And she was very, very good parent, but very sickly for most of my childhood. So being really without a parent for the most part, because she was she had cancer 3 times before I even came to college, and just treatment after treatment. And if you've never known someone who's gone through it multiple times and all the reactions to the treatment, she really did her best, but she was absent, I would say, for a big chunk of my childhood. And, I was just in that environment, got involved with a lot of things that, see young people in those situations do. And a local church, probably less than a mile up the road, had what they call a bus ministry, in which they would go into these communities and, do a special program for the kids, bring them to church for Sunday school and a service, and bring me back. And that's how I started coming. I was pretty bad, though. I got kicked off the bus the first week, but somehow the choir director and his wife from the church came, knocked on my door, met my mom, and took a shine to me and started bringing me themselves. It was just 5 minutes from the church. They'd come by, pick me up, and so that's how I got, involved, thinking I'd want to be a minister as well. That made a huge impact in my life, changed my direction. And so when I was getting ready to, leave high school and figure out what I wanted to do, my youth pastor and several people in the church had gone to a small ministry college in the Northwest Indiana area. And I was like, you know what? I think that's for me.
I love it. How far are you from Indianapolis?
Probably about 2 hours, 2.5 hours or so.
Got it. Okay. So you came here, you went to work, and you talked about your first week. And then what are some things you've learned about FFL since you got here, outside of that first week?
Oh, man. Well, you could write a book.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah. I would say, one of my biggest learning curves, and I think this actually hits a lot of people that come from the direct sales industry, especially if you were young and immature like I was, is I got very used to working in spurts, meaning that, I knew that I could really kind of take my foot off the gas for a week or two. Mm. And then when my bills, started piling up, well, hey, it was time to go to work. I knew I could turn it on and make it happen. And I probably did that, or some version of that, for my first 6 months with FFL. I think my second month I helped, 25 families and then 30 families. And then I kept doing more. And then when I realized what I could do, and I think I got lazy at points, and I was like, oh, well, let me, I don't need to work as hard these few months. I remember my first birthday was September, my first year. I thought I could take, the month off, and maybe as an independent producer, I think that would be okay. But because we started building so quick, and the funny thing is, if you had asked me then, Gabe, are you being lazy? I would have said no. I would have said I'm working really hard. I got all of these agents coming in, they're writing. But I think FFL helped me discover what hard work is, because it's just that it's just that consistent giving your best week after week. And I think I was used to giving my best, 1 or 2 weeks of the month. And I think FFL has taught me to give my best 4 or 5 weeks, of the month. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned here that I'll take, with me for the rest of my life.
I love that. And how old were you? You don't mind me asking how old you are?
31, about to be turned 32 31. Here, a week or so.
So you were 28, 29, somewhere in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. 29, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can relate to that what you're talking about there. And when you're focused, you're always working harder because you have something, and you probably figured out, and I'm guessing that with what God's called you to do, right? It's like, hey, how did you overcome that? What was the change that outside of us working hard at FFL, there's something probably internally that changed after that, right?
Yeah.
That made you where you are today.
Yeah, I think it was multiple things. I think one thing is I realized that, God has given me certain abilities and gifts in my life, and that other friends and people that have come into this industry don't necessarily have the same gifts. So I have a choice to make. I can be like, well, I'm taken care of, I can kind of do that same, attitude, like I'll turn it on when I need to, but that's not going to help some of these other people, some of my friends and business partners that I brought in. And I realize they need me to be on my A game consistently. And if not, I might be okay, but other people will suffer. And I think that was the biggest thing, because, Joe Basso, Sean Barnes, Matt Borsch, Mindy Tibbs, these are some of my best friends, that I brought into this industry. And I was like, man, I feel like I'm failing them if I don't give my best. So that was the biggest thing. And I think then the realization of, Dave, how incredible an opportunity this is. And that, just like we use when we're helping clients understand their situation, the fear of loss. Like, man, I don't want to look back on this time in my life and the opportunity I have and say, I wish I had worked harder. Regardless of what happens, whether I achieve all my dreams and goals or not, I think I could live with myself if I knew that I had given my all. But if I knew that I hadn't, and that there was more in the tank, and I just didn't give it, that's not something I could be okay with. So I think those two things, having to be there for someone else, which I think is the essence of growing up, right? Even when we're sitting with clients, if I sit with a young person, no kids, no spouse, no responsibilities, they're going to be very nonchalant about protecting themselves, protecting their family. Dave, I don't think I've ever sat with someone next to their spouse holding their child. They feel the heartbeat of this person they brought onto planet Earth, and not seriously consider what they're doing to protect their family. I think that helped me grow up a lot, realizing hey, these people need me.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you said something there that I've been talking about a little bit lately, and thinking, when we focus on serving others and giving back to others, because I think people go through challenges there's challenges daily in some cases. But I know somebody asked me this other day, and I was like, well, how I overcame it is, I know that whatever I'm going through, if I focus on serving other people or looking at reaching out, it's almost like it just goes away, even if it's just for a period of time. It's not so talk about that, because when you go into a home, that was how for me, man, when I was in the field, I was in the field. I was focused on that, growing the business, on the phone, whatever. I just didn't get bothered. If you were calling me, I'd answer and help you. But for me, man, that was just a way to get away. Whereas a lot of people, they look at the opposite. It's like they start getting in their head, and next thing you know, they're not even working.
Right.
Have you ever experienced that, where you found that, woe was me attitude, but then you found that, hey, if I go serve somebody, how that just changes the game for you?
100%. And I think, going back to that maturity thing, even though I think I knew some of these concepts, obviously a lot of these are biblical concepts, I don't think, there's knowledge and then there's experience. And a lot of people say you really don't know something until you've experienced it. And I think even though I knew these concepts, I didn't realize, and I didn't realize what an advantage it ended up being for me that I felt that way. Because the fact that I kind of took on other people and wanted to be responsible for them, helped me grow personally so much faster. You talk about in the home, when I was getting in-home questions from new agents that had no idea, they were asking me questions I didn't know the answers to, but I had to get it for them. So I was searching, finding that answer. They were asking me, they were seeing other people have these gigantic months and big weeks, and they were asking me my advice, and I hadn't done some of that stuff yet. And I was like, man, I need to hurry up and figure this stuff out to help with not even myself in mind, but my biggest month, was 80K. I don't, or 80 families helped. I don't think I ever would have achieved that had it not been people on my team wanting to know how to do that and wanting me to figure it out, for them. And so, there's a verse, where Christ talks about, take up his burden, he'll take yours, and his burden is easy and light. And I think it's such a strong principle that when you take someone else's burden, and obviously there's something special about Christ, but I think it's a principle for everybody. When you take someone else's burden, it is lighter. And I felt that. Wow. So before, when it was just about me, I was having a bad day in the field, it might really start getting on me, that bad day. But when I was answering agent calls and helping people in home all day, it didn't even register. I was out there just doing the work and, you don't want to buy it? Okay, have a great day. I got to get back to this agent, and I was on to my next appointment. So that was such, and I try to let people know that, especially people who come into the industry and they're like, hey, I know other people that I think would be good at this, that are great people that are in direct sales, maybe even in insurance, and they're waiting to bring those folks in until they feel like they're a pro. And I always tell them, there's a lot of reasons that's a mistake. Obviously that your, manager could help them grow, doesn't need to be you. But I think one of the biggest reasons it's a mistake is you will grow faster when you have someone you need to help.
That's true. I love that. And you guys are growing just crazy. But again, you led from the front. You've built the agency. Could you talk about the importance of that? And, I know we talked about it on the call the other day, but not everybody was on there, right? But the importance that you see, because for me, my story, Hall of Fame for me meant that, number one, I could sit and talk to you about it 2 years later. Mm-hmm. And I could tell any agent that worked for me that we were able to build something, why I did that.
Yeah. Could
you talk about the importance of that leadership and what that meant to your organization?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's honestly along the same vein, Obviously, when you go to college to become a minister, you didn't do it for the money. So right. But it was an advantage to me and other people who had that bigger learning curve. And sometimes they needed financial help. I needed to help agents with leads. There were several times, I brought friends in and I knew they were working hard. I knew they were hitting it. And if I wasn't performing on a high level, I wouldn't have had that extra capital to help them. Me and Caleb, we got an office almost right away. We got staff almost right away because we weren't confused. We wanted to build. And so we needed extra capital for that. And I think that was great because those financial responsibilities helped us stay focused and go to work. And also the example of it, I didn't realize, and I think I'd be lying if I said I still fully understood it. But there are just some people, Dave, who the fact that they could go out and help 10 families in a week and what that would do financially for their family and be able to help, multiple groups of people there. So for some folks, that's not as motivating as someone they know doing it first. And I remember that kind of light bulb clicking to where, I had some friends, I remember Mindy, she was getting started this business. She called me. She's like, whoa, you helped, 12 family. That's incredible. You're such an inspiration to our group. And in my head, I'm just like, man, you can go out and do this, but not everyone had that belief right off the bat, and they needed to see someone they know do it to have the belief. And now she does that like clockwork. She'll do it with her eyes closed, Right. But I think she needed to see someone do it first. And so that example is so strong for so many people. I mean, it's worth its weight in gold. So yeah, but those two needing the capital for the business, but also that invaluable people seeing you do it. Because I'm a pretty normal guy too. People don't see me, they're like, whoa, that's amazing. I do a lot of ride-alongs. When I was in the field, I just got to a point where I was like, hey, if I'm going to be helping families anyway, someone needs to be in this seat. and I'd get done with a day helping 4, 5, 6 families, and I'd be like, what do you think of that? Like, wow, that was awesome. And I'd be like, did you see me do anything you feel like you couldn't do, or that was you didn't understand? They're like, no, honestly, you made it look easy. Like, I think I could do that, And so I think that's invaluable.
Yeah, I love that, and you're building that bond too. I came from that world, and we've done a lot of that here, and I think that, we need to. I mean, I think that's something that definitely builds that bond and shows and things like that. And some people think, hey, you should go out, not get your head, hit a few times and then figure it out. But I think at the end of the day, it's just taking action, doing the right thing, and showing people the best way you can, whether it's right at the very beginning or 5 or 8 or 10 appointments in, or whatever the case may be. We just got to figure it out, what helps other people. So,
and for you, I agree that I that is a switch that I made. Obviously when my agency was not big, I just took everybody. But as it got big and I had a lot of people coming through the door, it would be a person would have a few weeks, a few sales, half a dozen dial days and some run days before I'd take them in the field. Just because at that point you got to be more selective, and I'm only going to be out in the field so many days. But no, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, man, as we wrap this up, first of all, I wish we could sit here and talk for another hour or more, get to know each other, which we will. We'll have this opportunity again and spend some time together. I can't wait to do that. Super excited about the future partnerships that will come your way down the road here, and I'm excited about that. And we're blessed to be in business with you guys. And but I love you, man. I appreciate you for being on here. But how do they get a hold of you? They obviously know Ephesians 3:20 and all that, and that's a powerful verse and stuff. But how do they get a hold of you? Instagram, phone number, whatever? Because when I do these things, I want to make sure that, hey, like, I really like Gabe. I want to reach out to him, want to work with him, whatever. Obviously, we'd love to have everybody at Velocity. But that's not how it works, right? I want people to work with me. They want to work with me, and if it makes, and God's got them here, great. If not, we want them with FFL, and we want them with good people like Gabe. So at the end of the day, that's what matters to me, is our company grows and we help everybody out. So how do they get a hold of you, Gabe?
Yeah, phone number 219-775-4097, and then Gabriel Ericson Sing on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, and I didn't say this, but they help a lot of orphanages. He gives a lot of money back. I learned that about you, and I look forward to even diving in that with you a little bit, talk a little bit off record about that. But we just love to help people. So
100%.
That's why we're here.
100%. So. Yeah, I appreciate you so much having me on, and it's really cool seeing God. You're hearing your testimony and seeing God bless your group and honestly everybody, and it's an amazing. And then I went and did what was important to me. I feel like this is the first time I could dive into my job, and it just like molds right with my faith, because you get to help. You get to serve families, protect them from so many different things. And then you get to help agents provide for their family, and then turn around and use that to bless their community. I love it, dude. And so I love to see what you're doing. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I can envision, 30, 40, 50,000, 100,000 people in a stadium that we're going to be able to talk about God through this platform. And I think that He's brought us all together for that reason. I was talking to Sean. I'll share this real quick. We'll wrap this thing up. We were down in Miami walking out. I was with him, and I whispered to him. I said, "Man, it's amazing what God's done through you." And he goes, "Man, nothing like this can happen without God." And to have a leader like that we can follow day in and day out, knowing that's his mission, is pretty incredible. So if you're a Christian watching this is definitely the right place to be. But he's using us, and we can affect so many people through this business. So thank you for being on, man. I love you, bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on. Make sure you subscribe if you get a chance, and we appreciate you being on each week. Thanks so much.
Love you, brother. Thanks so much. God bless. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, brother.